Thanks for joining me, Scott Ryan. Today's topic, why gold is going higher. I don't know exactly how much higher and within what time period, but the time is imminent because the fundamentals are already past and snowballing. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is the US dollar. What we have here is very much like any other Ponzi scheme. For example, the Madoff scam, how long it was able to go on and perpetuate. And frankly, even though a Ponzi scheme is a crime because there isn't enough money to pay off all the people that you really owe, it can go on perpetually as long as the people have confidence in it. Madoff's scam, if it weren't for some whistleblowers and the SEC finally giving them credence despite warnings for years prior to the collapse of Madoff's scam, if that had never happened, it would still be going strong today. He'd probably still be taking in money. It's just that it requires some sort of catalyst to bring a Ponzi scheme down like the House of Cards it is. As long as the people are defrauded and believe in the fakery, then it can maintain some sort of perceived value. Just like if to say the day before Madoff was exposed, wealthy people or anyone who owned shares in his fund could use that value as collateral or assets in order to obtain a loan, let's say. Even though they were worthless shares, as long as nobody knew that, banks or finance companies would accept that as collateral to support and back a loan. But that's what we're getting with the US dollar. And it is amazing because, now, let me just say, I am not a quote-unquote gold bug by any stretch of the imagination. I am long mostly equities. I believe in equities, always have been. And I have a position in gold that is generally between 15-20% at the most of my portfolio. But when I see the scam that is going on with this currency, it's amazing to me because if you look at it's unlike any other asset or security, let's say, where people panic, people go nuts when they own, let's say, stocks or even real estate, and they see a valuation quoted. People will dump stocks. It'll trigger panic selling and a crash because people can't stand to see the value, a ticker going by, showing the value, even though it's made by people, supply and demand on a daily basis, and can be subject to daily vicissitudes or emotions. When they see that value, quote-unquote value, drop on a ticker, it causes a panic. People are outraged. People act on it. Yet the currency, because they look at the US dollar, for example, and they only quote it in comparison to other ersatz money or fake money, the money of other countries that are also pulling the same Ponzi scheme and just issuing money with nothing to back it, nothing to quell their counterfeiting, then people think, oh, well, the dollar's quote-unquote strong. And that's absurd. It's a piece of shit. The dollar is a turd at best. And people don't equate it. They don't hold it accountable. When they go to the grocery store, do you hear how outraged they are about the fact that a loaf of bread is $5 now? Or the new watermarks that are on milk, I've noticed, because I do go to the grocery stores, I've noticed that there is a new high watermark. And now it can vary by region, but here in West Palm Beach, for the last year, I was able to get milk under $4, like around $3.70 something. Now the new low watermark for milk, even the places where I could get it in the $3.70s a gallon, are now over $4 a gallon. Everything's going higher. My son and I, we have a tradition of going to Subway after the beach. At a particular beach we go to, there's a Subway at the Ocean Mall, and Subways all around. Everybody knows the jingle, $5 footlongs, that song that went along with it for a few years. Subway would have these $5 footlong sales, and you could get basically, all the sandwiches for $5 on the menu. I mean, it would vary a little bit from month to month, but now there's no $5 footlong. Now it's an $8 footlong. The cheapest one is $8, and I'm talking about right here in Palm Beach County, and that's over the last just not even a year. That new low water mark has been established, and it's like that with everything, and with gasoline and fuel. That, my friends, is the scam of the century, because this is all because of the federal government and their prodigal spending, their abuse, their fraud, billions of dollars that can't be accounted for in various federal bureaucracies, and then the quantitative easing, the collusion that they have with the Federal Reserve, buying their own treasuries, counterfeiting money to buy their own treasuries, essentially, even though the Federal Reserve is supposed to be an independent institution. Listen, Janet Yellen, and this notion of tapering, it's just hilarious. Listen, Janet Yellen was appointed by Barack Obama for a reason, and she is his yes person. And he is going to, there is no way there's going to be any meaningful diminution in counterfeiting. The federal government is actually creating about the entire GDP of some of our largest states every month. They're creating a dollar amount equivalent to that GDP of Florida, let's say, my state, and printing it into thin air, counterfeiting that much, and buying government treasuries so the government can keep destroying the currency. And people see that. Instead of a ticker, they go to the damn grocery store, they go to the gas station, they go to the movies or wherever, and they're outraged because they see, and then all the ice cream, the shrinkage, the candy. I mean, look at this candy. Oh, and we just had Easter, and look at the candy baskets. You notice all these candy makers are coming out with new bite-sized Snickers. Like, it was just such a, God, they really solved the problem there. There was such a demand for bite-sized Snickers now. I mean, it has nothing to do with the fact that these companies are trying to sell you less and to trick you into thinking they're doing you some kind of favor for charging you more or the same for less. But now we're gonna protect the government and their chicanery and their fraud, and they're robbing you and stealing your life savings by counterfeiting and giving it to people, paying off politicians and their special interest groups. And we're going to take your life savings and do that with it. And we're going to help them. This is what these companies are doing, by tricking you into thinking that this is normal and this has nothing to do with the fact that your currency is going to shit. And so they're going to sell us bite-sized everything. They're going to reduce the amount. I mean, this is hyperinflation. It is hyperinflation. What we are going through is a actual crisis. Food is going through the roof. And how long? It's amazing how perverse people can be, that they are willing to accept the horse crap fed to them daily, the excuses by this government, and the blaming of the private sector, blaming us, convincing people to blame capitalism, which is nothing but the economic corollary of freedom, convincing sick, perverted, ignorant people to protest their own liberty and to blame the fact that we are free on what is going on instead of the people who are causing it. The Democrat Party and the GOP, the McConnells, the McCains, the Lindsey Grahams, the John Boehners, the people who collude with them. It is, but anyways, listen. That is your ticker symbol. That is real. That's not somebody's psychological interpretation of what a share in a company is worth that very day. This is permanent destruction. I mean, if people understood, if people weren't so willfully or willingly ignorant to accept the consequences, they refuse to accept the consequences of their own doing by electing these swindlers, these elected idiots and elected scoundrels. They're willing to play along and eat less and less food, replace that with soybean and food stamps, because they refuse to believe or to accept the fact that they said character doesn't matter in an elected, and who I elect, character has nothing to do with it. This is what we get, America. Here's the bottom line. At some point, this Ponzi scheme is going to collapse, and it's going to be fast, and it's going to be furious, because there is only so much before you start having to eat Soylent Green. Where Soylent Green is going to be for real soon. I mean, you cannot cover this up. You cannot bamboozle people with hyperinflation for food and the things that are essential to human sustenance. And when that does happen, gold, which has for, believe me, it isn't different this time, for the entire human 7,000 years or 6.5 thousand years of recorded human history, gold has always bought the same pallet of wheat or the same suit or whatever it is. You translate it, you compare it. Instead of comparing it to some counterfeit currency, compare it to what it could always buy. Compare it to that wheat. Compare it to a tank of oil. It's always holding its value. And in US dollars, when this scam is finally accepted because it can no longer be hidden, gold is going to move fast and furiously. And I'm not just talking about Eric Holder's and the Obama's administration's fast and furious. I'm talking about a new fast and furious. I mean, it is an absolute scam. And believe me, they love to talk down gold because it's a smoking gun of their crimes. So the longer they feel, that's their battle. The longer they feel that the longer that they can hold down the price of gold, the more that they can continue on with their crimes. They know at some point it's going to hit the fan. That's why they're loading up on ammo right now. But then you hear this talk. It's so funny. You hear this talk in the financial media. They talk about tapering. These people are incredibly credulous. It's absolutely unbelievable. You know, you watch some of these financial networks. It's like it took them a little while, but when they learned the term quantitative easing, you didn't hear it. They didn't catch it right away when Greenspan and Bernanke were talking about quantitative easing. But once they did, you heard it every other word. QE, QE, QE1, QE2, QE3. They love saying it. And now recently they've learned the word tapering, and they feel like it makes them so much more intelligent. It makes them sound intelligent. So they sit around on their round tables talking about tapering. Will tapering come this quarter? It's all jawboning. There will be no tapering. And tapering, it's a tool. Okay, so when they say that they tapered, so instead of monetizing, instead of printing 90 billion a month, we're going to taper it back and only produce 80 billion. Yeah, we've really cut back. Like, that's going to make a damn bit of difference. But what it is it's a tool. It's the only tool that the Federal Reserve has to continue to bamboozle people. It's jawboning into thinking that they would actually do anything meaningful. It's a way of them to trick people into thinking that they actually have any power to stop the crisis that they have created. There is no way out of this. It's a collapse of the currency, but they're trying to prolong it to a certain point as long as they can. So if we say, oh yeah, well, now things are looking good and we're going to taper, we're thinking about tapering maybe a year or two from now or whatever. It's whatever they can taper. They cannot stop because this government can't even pay the interest on the debt. If the interest rates went up to where they should be in the primary market, it would all be over, and they know that. So all they can do to try to keep gold prices down, nothing else. They don't give a damn about food and all that crap. That's something that they can use to politicize. They like food and energy. Obama wants $10 gasoline because they can blame it on conservatives and blame it upon our liberty and say, look, if we were only like the damn communists, then we wouldn't have these problems. No, they want the things that make people to suffer the most, and then they can attribute falsely. But they don't want gold, and the way to keep that gold low is by lying and talking about tapering, and that's the only way that they can do it. And it's an absolute joke because they'll never be able. It is impossible. They keep talking about, will they stop buying? No, they won't stop buying. They might lower it by $5 billion a month. It's totally irrelevant and insignificant. They are spending us into bankruptcy. The U.S. dollar is done. It's just a matter of time. And it is because of the crimes of previous administrations. The Obama administration and the Bush administrations. This wasn't created overnight. And because of the cowards, the traitors, And I mean, the Democrat Party are the communists. They are the ones that hate the Constitution, and they are out to destroy it. They're fundamentally opposed to all the principles of capitalism and freedom. The Republican traitors who've gone along and allowed all this to happen, theoretically, they are pro-capitalist, but they're more pro themselves and their own legacies. The people like John Boehner, it's not that they're communists necessarily, but it's that they are about themselves. They're Boehnerists. They're McCainists. They're McConnellists. They think that they have something that they can leave to posterity that'll make them relevant beyond their lives. But in reality, the only relevance that they'll have is that posterity will curse their names because of the slavery that they created for them. Nevertheless, a bit tangential. Bottom line is, gold's going higher. I laugh when I see it fluctuating and going down and go back. It's laughable. Gold right now is the most undervalued thing. If you're talking about U.S. dollars, those turds, their days are numbered. And I'm sorry to say that, because the U.S. dollar used to be something backed by integrity and backed by assets, not just the full faith and credit of scoundrels, pettifogging, slip and fall lawyers. There's nothing backing it but the words of ignoble swindlers. And gold will be, I don't know the exact date, but gold's going in the thousands, and it's not far off, because this cannot, when you look at what's going on the ticker tape, at the grocery store, at the gas tank, at your energy bill, everything essential to human sustenance, it cannot be denied much longer. Thank you for joining me. Scott Ryan.